Hello, duelists. The day has arrived. We knew it was coming, and we figured it was coming right after the regional round of the World Championships, and here it is. It is the day that the ban list has been announced, and it's a good one. It's a big one. I don't know if it's big enough, and I'll explain why in just a few minutes, but I want to preface in just saying through that regional scene, it was borderline painful at times. It was soul crushing because you're playing one of maybe four decks, like every single duel, but very often one of two. Obviously, those being Orcust and Odd Eyes, and any combination of the two. Or I put out a deck review yesterday. The winning deck from globally, the number one, was just a combination of the two. Because when you have two overpowered things, why not just find a way to mash them together and take advantage of both of the strengths there? Um, so this is absolutely needed. I think that these changes that I'm going to walk through in just a minute are totally needed to balance out the game and make sure it's a fun experience for everyone, not just like these, players at King of Games and top tournaments and stuff like that, but people logging in to play just a couple of PvP duels and not feeling like they're going to get crushed by Orcust every time they log in. So with that said, I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to walk through kind of cards that fit into one deck specifically, and then kind of work around that way. So I might scroll up and down here a few times, but bear with me. I think it'll be a little bit of a cleaner way to discuss the impact of it all. But starting right at the top, the one that jumps off the page is Nightmare Mermaid. I'm a little bit surprised this has gotten fully forbidden. It feels like Duel Links is often hesitant to do it, and I don't know if it'll really have the impact that it's anticipated to. The reason I say that, so obviously why it is getting banned is because any of the token summoning cards like Mecha Phantom Beast, like Phantom Skyblaster, those are being used very often to use both the card and the token they summon to go into, let's say, Nightmare Phoenix, go back into Mermaid, bring out Orcust Nightmare, and then go into the Orcust monsters like that. Very, very consistent. Fantastic to have because you can have like 6 total of those cards in your deck, plus Scrap Recycler and do all that fun stuff. Um, so being able to ban this card gets rid of those opportunities there. However, if we think about what we're really trying to accomplish is we're trying to get an Orcust monster on the field with another card our first turn to be able to get into Ding and any of the other cards like that. Now there's other ways to do it. I think if you think of something like the Apprentice Illusion Magician, I mean, I had a lot of videos out about the Dark Magician build of Orcust. There's ways to get cards in the field. You have things like Link Slayer. You can do things with Rocket. There's a lot of stuff that can be done that isn't requiring this method. This is just a method currently being used, and quite honestly, it might be the best one, most consistent. But I don't think this alone is doing enough to just stop Orcust. Let me know if you think this is a hot take in the comments and you disagree. And there's other changes too that I'm going to discuss in a moment, but this one, there's no Orcust monsters that are getting put on the ban list, and that is what surprises me because players are really, really creative in this game, and I think players will find a way to get around it. Will it be a strong no, but I think it's still going to be a viable deck. So I'll scroll down a little further. Orchestrated Release is the next one to mention here. I don't think this is getting banned for kind of pure Orcust deck reasons, because it's not that commonly played. It's being put on the Forbidden 1 list. This is more about the combo decks, like I mentioned, Odd Eyes being one of them. I'll cover those after, but this isn't something that you see a ton of play in during pure Orcust decks. It does allow you to take control of the field, as it mentions here, during your opponent's turn, which is like a little bit of the toxicity, and I know the tower card, the field card, does the same thing, so you can't really play both of those here, but this isn't a big hit in my opinion. And we'll go down to Scrap Recycler. This is another one. The Orcust monsters did not take a hit, it's just the method of playing it well. Now, we're limited 3, and obviously we only had 3 of them in the deck before. That just means that we can't play any other limited 3 cards. Duh. But a lot of the Orcust decks weren't playing other limited 3 cards. I played 3 Mind Controls. They're very, very powerful. Not being able to play them is going to hurt, but a lot of decks weren't. You're not going to be able to play your Evac, your Ice Dragon's Prison, your Crackdown. However, there's other trap cards and Book of Moons and things like that that you can take advantage of to still have similar effects. Is it the same? No. But is it a significant drop-off? I don't know. I don't think it is immediately. And like I said, this might get like the Mech Knight's approach of You do a little bit on the ban list 1 month, and then if it's still just taking over the game or still just powerful enough, just crush it a second time and put the nail in the coffin. So we'll see what happens, but I personally would like to see at least one of the monster cards in from the Orcust getting the ban list there, because I think that with these changes too, you can start adding a bunch of the lower level Orcust monsters in combination with those special summoning perks, and still get what you're looking for from the deck. But to be seen, that's just my opinion. We'll move on. I'm going to scroll back to the top, and I think the next bunch of cards are a lot of it is about kind of combo decks. Like I mentioned, the top player globally played an Orcust and Odd Eyes combination. The Darkest Dragon Doom Rider is exactly that, where you can't play Orchestrated Release now and this card together. If you're playing purely an Odd Eyes deck, this is fine. There's generally no other limited one cards in that deck, but people really, at least at the top level, are not playing pure Odd Eyes decks. They can be very good defensively and just lock down your opponent. Or that first turn, you get out Abyss Dweller, you get out this card right here, and can destroy something, can lock out of the graveyard from banishing. A lot of good stuff to be done, but it's just not as strong as combining those two, and those can no longer really be done. Same thing here. I have a couple of videos out about Onamat Orcust, have a couple more that are going to be coming out, and this is just saying you can't combine a lot of this stuff, because Gaga Revenge is really powerful, and you can special summon a monster from the graveyard and just keep flowing with this type of stuff, and no longer can you if it's a combination deck with, let's say, Orchestrated Release. You have to pick and choose what you're going to be playing there. Now if we go down, Farfa is fairly similar too. There's a lot of Burning Abyss monsters that can end up in, especially with the Onamat approach here, so these two can be kind of fighting each other for a spot in your deck, and can have that effect. So you're really picking and choosing what you want to include if you're going to do any combo of Orcust, but it's going to be very difficult to do it. Although pure Orcust was very, very strong, the combo decks are likely out. Keep moving further down. I don't think the Merchant here is going to have too much impact, so I'm going to move over quickly. The Moray of Greed, I think, is a bit interesting, because if I remember correctly, this was having a lot of play, I think like early this year at the KC Cup, where the water deck took over what felt like out of nowhere. And this was, I think, unlimited at the time, and then went directly to limited 1 to show how crazy the use of was it. Now moving this up to 2, maybe the deck becomes a little more playable again, because you can basically have 2 Pot of Greeds specific to this deck. We'll see. I think you'll see some play of it. I mean, I've still seen some play of the deck, but it's not going to take over the way it was before. Speedroid Double Yo-Yo. I'm getting a little bit of a laugh here because it's just this. It's so random. Yes, this will decrease the consistency of the Speedroid deck for sure, but bringing this to limited 2, nothing else is touched in the deck. I don't think that like really does much. This isn't the most crucial card in my opinion. I've been playing Speedroid for a little bit now, having a lot of fun with it, but it just seemed like Konami saying like, hey, there's let's just find a way to throw Speedroid in there too. So that's what it is. Will still be probably the best deck moving forward. Yeah, the rest of these, I know I'm moving one by one when I said I wouldn't, but that's okay. Tour Guide from the Underworld, that's something with Burning Abyss, shouldn't be too much of an impact. Beatrice below, that is something that was getting used in Orcust decks. Obviously, this is Burning Abyss too, but another kind of trade-off you have to make if you're going to play any type of Orcust. The one that kind of snuck under the radar, Silver Rocket Dragon, a little bit interesting. Again, you think about the other impacts we're talking about here, and the reason it was seeing a ton of play was to use the effect there to banish something from your opponent's extra deck, specifically Nightmare Mermaid very often. So putting it to limited 3, I don't know that the deck needed a ton of reduction in power, but should be interesting, because maybe you go down to playing, 1 or 2 of these, and then you have to trade off with the limited 3 traps and what you want to play. I don't think it's a significant nerf, especially given the other decks that are getting hurt by the ban list here, but something to keep in mind of like watching how decks are played a little differently there, but yeah, shouldn't be too big. Tatsunoko, little flexible for synchro summoning decks. Not too much more to say about that one. Pendulum Call is interesting to me. I thought this would get banned limited too. That was my guess. It's a really, really strong card. It is specific to Odd Eyes, so you can't really use it for like any deck, but being able to discard one card and then be able to pick any other kind of pendulum monsters you want for that deck is really, really powerful. And having 3 of these in your decks is a big deal, and being able to, there's not many other limited 3 cards that this deck, the Odd Eyes kind of pure deck, was playing. Every once in a while you'd see like an evac or something like that, but this forces your opponent to like not do much with their back row. I mean, you can include like a warning point or something, but you really want to keep that deck around 20 cards. So this is more of a, again, hybrid kind of combo of Orcust and Odd Eyes that you're gonna, like, you're trading off already Scrap Recycler versus Pendulum Call, that type of stuff. But in, you know, if you're just sticking to Odd Eyes, you're still good here. It's not really much impact. Now, some interesting stuff here. I'll name Goki. Goki's back. I don't like the deck playing against it because it's just, you know, one turn pounding you into the ground. It's really consistent. It's really big pain. You kind of have to play traps to stop it, because even if you stop a monster effect quite often, like, there's enough resources to get through that. So we're going to see Goki on the rise. That is one with the big arrow upwards, despite the arrows downwards that we've just been talking about here. Krishan still have been hanging around, so this should help a bit. Especially maybe some of these decks get a little more support coming up, and then they can really take back over. Another example of that being Signet Crosswipe, with kind of Link monsters being introduced not that long ago. Definitely going to see more Cyberus monsters introduced and more ways to play it. So I think this card was only banned like a month or 2 months ago. So seeing the change so quickly is a little bit interesting. Shouldn't have too much of an immediate impact. Maybe the Code Talker, Code Salad deck gets a little more play, but maybe it's just gearing up for the future as well. One more Burning Abyss down below, but again, not too much of an impact here. I don't think people are going to playing purely Burning Abyss decks, but you'll see some, just not enough to be like taking over tournaments or meta or anything like that. Now I think one of the biggest decks that benefits from this list right here is Raid Raptor. Strangolinius is no longer limited 3. Now you can add any of the limited 3 traps, anything like that, to your deck that you wanted, so it can really boost the power there. And then Swallow's Nest, this is going to work well with Raid Raptor, and this is also going to work well with Harpies. So Harpies can make a little bit of a comeback. Harpies were tier 0 a few years ago, still see play in competitive, or not the best deck, but if it's a deck you like to play, it's still an option for you. So all of these things I'm pointing out, I'm not going to skip over the judge here, but all of these things is just really not relevant. All of these things point to a more balanced metagame, which is really the goal of doing these lists anyway, so I'm very pleased with that. I'm going to talk about the skills really quick. Well, I'm going to mention them, I guess. Red Eyes Roulette, looking to be balanced. Zexal Ultimate Unite, looking to balance. And Holly Angel Trick. Trickstar is there, specifically getting more balance. So it is nice to... Oh, that wasn't what we planned for. Okay, there we go. But that is pretty big, because Trickstars have already been making a comeback. I know I pointed out a few times kind of impact there. But I'll just point out a few other things too, because when we talk about Orcust specifically and Odd Eyes not being as powerful, Rocket getting a little bit of a hit, Speedroid getting a little bit of a hit, not really a hit, but I talked about Trickstar and Raid Raptor getting a little bit of increase there. Resonators are still really powerful. Magistus, you know, you could see a little bit of play from S-Force, Elemental Heroes, Abyss Actors, DDD, all Starry Night, Chronomaly, like all decks that you could see a little bit more of, and we'll just point to a more enjoyable game to be played. So let me know what you think below, but I think these will have a very positive impact on PvP itself, and could more need to be done, you know, next month possibly, but I think this is absolutely a step in the right direction, and let's all have a little bit more fun. I think it's been a tough couple of months, so hope this has been helpful to you.